Good morning, everyone. My name is Fred Farias, and I'm the chair of the board. It is now 9:03, and I would like to call the April 28th quarterly board meeting to order. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast via the internet, and that those present in the boardroom may be visible to the public. Before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome those joining us via video, and to ask that they observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak, mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and keep background noise to a minimum, please. Members, when I call your name, please announce present. I, Fred Farias, present. Donna Williams, Vice Chair.
Present.
Javed Anwar. Present. Richard Clemmer via Zoom.
Present. And by the way, apparently my video says it has been disabled, so you might want to have the IT guys check that.
Okay, Mary will look into that. Thank you for letting us know, Mr. Clemmer.
Thank you.
Robert Gaunt will arrive late. He'll be here. Emma Schwartz. Present. Sam Torn. Here. Welcome Wilson. Present. Daniel Wong. Present. Matthew Smith. Present. Okay, thank you. Please record in the minutes that we have a quorum. So I would like to announce that our annual Texas Higher Education Leadership Conference this year will be held at the Aacn Hotel and Conference Center here in Austin on December 7th and 8th. So we would like everyone to mark their calendars now. That'll be a great meeting as it was this past year. So we are really, the staff is preparing for a great program again. So we want everyone to be there. It'll be a great opportunity to get the state of the address of higher education from Commissioner Keller, and of course, great breakout sessions like we had last year. The 2022 Leadership Conference will include full in-person programming with appropriate COVID-19 protocols. This year, it'll include training that fulfills all the statutory requirements for university regents and college board members and trustees. The 2022 State of Higher Education address, of course, as I mentioned, and of course a showcase of our Star Award winners this year. More details will be shared by the coordinating board website and through other means as the outlets, as they become more available. The other thing I would like to also do is mention our student representative, Matthew Smith. This is Matthew's last meeting. I can't believe the year has flown by. Matthew, thank you for your service representing students of the state of Texas. Matthew is graduating from Texas State University down the road here in San Marcos, and we congratulate you for being accepted to law school. So thank you for your service, and we appreciate all you've done this year. Our next agenda item is discussion and possible action of appointment of a secretary to the board to replace Mr. Raven, who no longer serves on the board. Members, the floor is open for nominations.
Chairman, I'd
Yes.
like to nominate Javed Anwar for secretary for the board.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams.
I'll second.
We have a motion to nominate Javed Anwar, secretary of the board of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, by Ms. Williams, a second by Ms. Schwartz. Do I have any other nominations? Any discussion? Members, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Anwar. You are now the secretary of the coordinating board. Thank you. Next on the agenda, item 3, Commissioner remarks. The Commissioner will provide his remarks here on the agenda items for today that we'll be discussing. Commissioner Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all our board members and to everyone who's joined our quarterly meeting. We've got a robust agenda today, a lot to talk about. A few highlights that I'd like to touch on briefly. So today's major policy conversation is going to focus on 2 initiatives for advancing equity for the benefit of all Texans that we're implementing, especially to support direct-to-college enrollment of high-achieving high school Texas graduates. So as you all know, Already pre-pandemic, we'd been seeing that the percentage of Texas high school graduates who enrolled directly in our colleges and universities after their high school graduation was declining, and it declined for several years. And that was pre-pandemic. And then, of course, in the pandemic, we saw a devastating impact on students' enrollments and re-enrollments. And pre-pandemic data from 2019 shows that more than 17% of Texas high school graduates who graduated in the top 10% of their class, and so they were eligible for automatic admission, who were African American or Hispanic, did not enroll, not just in Texas, but anywhere in the United States that reports data to the National Student Clearinghouse. So these trends represent a critical challenge for our state. As we highlighted in our Building a Talent Strong Texas plan, Texas grew more than any other state. We added nearly 4 million Texans over the last decade, and 95% of that growth was in communities of color. There's an urgent need for the state of Texas to engage and enroll particularly high-achieving students, to make sure that we keep them in Texas, they keep on track, and we help them unlock that potential. I'm excited about the discussion today, and we'll have a joint presentation from our team to talk about 2 initiatives that we're incubating from the coordinating board and will be piloting on these important issues. Ray Martinez who's of course Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education, and Elizabeth Mayer, who's now Assistant Commissioner, Permanent Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will provide our regular board update on our transfer initiatives and the work to establish academic pathways that are clear for students and that limit excess hours. I'm excited about the progress that we're making. I'm looking forward to the discussion with the board to share that we should be on track to have at least 10 pathways defined in partnership with the institutions through our Texas Transfer Pathways by the end of the calendar year. So these are pathways that enable students to have associate's degrees, 60 hours, that would be guaranteed for transfer into our public universities. Also, yesterday, the board's IDEA committee heard from Assistant Commissioner Emily Cormier and the advisory committee chairs on the Formula Funding Advisory Committee's recommendations. As we prepare for the upcoming legislative session, so these recommendations are sent to the Governor and Legislative Budget Board as a starting point for their work in appropriations recommendations for the upcoming legislative session. Now, as we discussed, this year looks a little different for our agency, particularly on the community and technical college side, because our agency is also tasked to support the state's commission on community college finance that's chaired by Mr. Woody Hunt of El Paso. So that commission is charged with making detailed recommendations for the legislature to consider about improving our community college finance system. The timing for this work is important for our larger work to advance new goals around building a talent-strong Texas, because it's an opportunity to have a serious conversation about how we can better align the structure of our finance system with the ambitious goals that we've set out as a state. So I look forward to that continued conversation and the continued work with the board on finance policy. This next session is going to be an important one for higher education for all of our institutions on finance policy, and I'll certainly keep the board informed about all the work that's relevant to these deliberations. Now, finally, I'd like to update the board and the audience on a few staffing additions and changes within our agency. So we've been working to strengthen our agency operations, oversight of key projects and priorities. So I'd ask if the staff are in the audience, if they'd stand. Some of these folks are well known to the board, and some of them are folks who are new to the agency. So on Monday, Sarah Keaton will join our team as Associate Commissioner for Administration. Sarah will be overseeing funding and resource planning, human resources, financial services, and ISS. So Sarah is currently Associate Vice Chancellor for State Relations for the Texas Tech University System. Before that, Sarah worked for the Legislative Budget Board for 13 years. She was the Higher Education Team Manager for the Legislative Budget Board, and most recently was the LBB's Assistant Director. In March, Ken Martin was promoted to Chief Operating Officer, a job that he takes on in addition to his role as Chief Financial Officer. Then Leslie Hall was promoted to Assistant Commissioner for Strategic Implementation. So Leslie leads our Project Management and Improvement Office, and she's added also the members of the agency's policy team to her portfolio. So bringing these two teams together gives us increased synergy and discipline to help us support agency-wide projects and make sure that we're keeping our initiatives on track. Lizette Montiel, who's been serving as Assistant Director for External Relations, has moved over and has been promoted to Deputy Chief of Staff to help keep me on track. And we're also building our capabilities within academic affairs and workforce development. You all know Jarrell Booker, who's been promoted to Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education. Jarrell's going to lead the development, growth, and integration of our digital learning, student success, and college career and advising portfolios. He's also going to be providing technical assistance and capacity building for the equity initiatives that we're going to be discussing today that are going to be essential to our strategic plan. Laura Brennan, who serves on Jarrell's team, has been promoted to Assistant Commissioner for College and Career Advising. Laura and her team are working on the front lines of improving our talent pipeline and propelling more Texans to complete credentials of value. So her team in particular is working on our initiative to roll out My Texas Future, which will be a one-stop digital clearinghouse for all of our digital advising tools. So we have one place we can drive traffic to help connect Texans of all ages, adult learners, veterans, students contemplating transfer, secondary students, so they can explore their options, start to develop a plan, and connect with institutions that offer programs in their areas of interest. We also recently added a new position to help strengthen our student success initiatives, which was one of the major priorities in the last round of GEAR funding that we received from the governor and legislative leadership. So Jenny L. Strother joined Jarrell's team earlier this month as Assistant Commissioner for Student Success. So Jenny L. served most recently as Vice President of Student Development and Enrollment Management at Concordia University, and she's working on our GEAR-funded grant project to accelerate and scale best practices in student success and retention. So just to remind the board, right now we're conducting an inventory across all of our colleges and universities of major student success practices. We're also working in partnership with institutions and the Education Policy Institute of the Texas Association of Black Educators to do deeper dives on promising practices where we see institutions getting much better results than you might typically expect given their conditions. And then we've received additional GEAR funds, about $30 million in GEAR funds that this year will deploy in partnership with our institutions to help scale and improve student success practices. Two other key additions to our team to help us build strength in key strategic areas. So Matt Parsons is our new Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Education, and Matt is working across our agency and in partnership with the Texas Workforce Commission to assist with various tri-agency workforce education and data initiatives. So this includes a focus on strategies that foster the creation and implementation of evidence-based innovations to improve student workforce education outcomes with a focus on high-value skills and credentials. Matt's position is unique because it's actually co-funded by the Texas Workforce Commission. So Matt has a formal connection to the Workforce Commission, and that helps us stay more closely aligned with our colleagues in TWC and move faster. Kara Larkin-Skinner has joined the Data Analytics and Innovation team as an Assistant Commissioner. So Kara is leading our efforts to expand data offerings to support and partner with a wide range of Texas institutions, and she has an unusually broad range of experience doing this with experience at Amarillo College, Our Lady of the Lake University, and Trinity University. I'm proud of the team that we've pulled together at the coordinating board and the talent that we've been able to assemble to take advantage of the opportunities and realize the vision that the board has advanced. And I appreciate your support and the support of our many partners as we work to continue to raise the bar for Texas higher education. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to the meeting today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will applaud you and your team and this great, congratulations to those promotions to each and every one of you. We are very proud of the work that our staff here at the coordinating board is doing. And I'm amazed at the background, the credentials of each and every one of you. So we are all, as board members, I know I speak for the whole board, very proud of all the work that you're doing. And on behalf of the students and families of the state of Texas for higher education, congratulations and keep up the great work. So we're very proud of you. And again, Commissioner, for reaching out and getting the best talent to join the coordinating board and moving higher education forward in the state. And, you know, it's all about our people, us, you know, human resources, right, that make this thing happen. And so thank you all for all the hard work that y'all do. Members, any questions for the Commissioner on his report? Okay, hearing none, the next agenda item is public testimony. We do not have anyone registered to testify today, so we'll go on to the next item, which is consideration and possible action to the approval of the minutes of the January 27th, 2022 quarterly board meeting. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the January quarterly board meeting?
Yes.
I have a motion by Mr. Anwar. A second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Torn. Any discussion? Members? No discussion? Then all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is consideration and possible action to approve the consent calendar. The consent calendar, as you all know, includes non-controversial items that we think that can be approved without comment or discussion. This allows us to save time for other items that need more attention. Highlighted items in gray are in the consent calendar on your agenda. You've had time in advance to review these items, and of course, any board member can request that any item can be changed or removed from the consent calendar. This will give us an opportunity to discuss the items fully later in the meeting. We're going to take up the consent calendar in two parts, as usual, non-rule items and then rule items. The items that we have placed on the non-rule consent calendar today are 9B, which is consideration and possible action to approve the Formula Advisory Committee's recommendation relating to funding formulas for the use by the governor, the Legislative Budget Board, in making appropriation recommendations to the appropriate legislative committees. 9C, consideration and possible action to adopt the Commissioner's recommendation relating to the annual report about the financial condition of the state's community college districts. 9D, consideration and possible action to appoint student representatives to the Financial Aid Advisory Committee. 11B, consideration and possible action to adopt the report to the board on school closures and or teach-outs pursuant to Board Rule 7.76. 11B, consideration and possible action to appoint student representatives to the Learning Technology Advisory Committee and to the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee. 11G, consideration and possible action to approve the request to extend the current interagency contract with the University of Texas at Austin for maintenance of the Apply Texas system. 11H, consideration and possible action to appoint members to the Advisory Council to post-secondary education for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And 12B, report on grants and contracts. Members, at this time, I would like to add the following item to the non-rule consent calendar. 12L, if you'd look at that, that's the report on institutional requests related to new degree and certificate programs acted on by the Commissioner or Assistant Commissioners since our last board meeting. Does anyone want to add any other item to the non-rule consent calendar today? Does anyone want to remove any item on the non-rule consent calendar? If not, do I have a motion for approval of the non-consent calendar as amended?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Anwar. Any discussion? Not. Members, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, no. If not, The motion does pass. Thank you. Members, the next item for the consent agenda of the board rules. The board rules placed on the consent calendar are those that either technical, conforming, or implement non-controversial policies from which there is consensus. Members, the rules for the consent calendar are the following. 9F1, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments, Board Rules 22.3, 22.6, and 22.11 concerning the Student Financial Aid Program's general provisions. 11M1, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules 6.107 and 6.110 concerning planning grants and graduate medical education. 11M, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to Board Rules 6.122 and 6.125 concerning unfilled positions, grants, and graduate medical education. 11M3, consideration and possible action to adopt proposed amendments to the Texas Administrative Code, Board Rules 6.137 and 6.140 concerning grants for new and expanded programs for graduate medical education. 11M4 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed repeal of Board Rules 6.175 through 6.184 concerning resident physician expansion grant program. Members, does anyone want to remove any item from the rule consent calendar? If not, do I have a motion for approval of the rule consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you. A motion by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wong. All those, any discussion first of all? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 7 is the major policy discussion. Major policy discussions are topics of interest where staff, policy experts, and or stakeholders provide coordinating board members with the information on higher education policy matters or initiatives that have potential to impact Texas statewide. The major policy discussion for this meeting will provide an overview of high-performing high school graduates who are not enrolling in higher education and a summary of initiatives underway to address this challenge. This is going to be a great topic because this is something that we've been looking at deep dive and talking about over the last year and a half with the pandemic. So we're really looking forward to this policy discussion. And thank you for the staff and commissioner for putting this together and really taking a deep dive, because this is a question we as board members get a lot on what's happening with this. And a lot of times, there's a lot of anecdotal things, but this is a great report, so we're looking forward to this. Lori Fye, welcome. Lori, of course, is the Deputy Commissioner for Data Analytics and Innovation at the board. Jarrell Booker will also be on the panel, Assistant Commissioner for College Readiness and Success. Suzanne Morales-Vallev, Senior Director for College Readiness and Success. Hello again, Suzanne. Matt Parsons, welcome, Matt. And Matt is Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Innovation. He'll will present this item, and they'll be available for questions. Ms. Fay.
Thank you, Chairman Farias and board members. It's a pleasure to see you this morning for this major policy discussion. I'm privileged to serve as Deputy Commissioner for Data Analytics, and today my role is to actually share some more of the details of the data that the Commissioner was commenting on earlier, and I'm very proud to be joined by my esteemed colleagues who will go further into discussion about the types of initiatives we have aimed at the issues of high-achieving Texas high school graduates. Next slide. And next slide. Oh, I can't really see the slides here. I wanted to begin by sharing some background to give you a little bit more of a foundation in why we are increasingly concerned about the direct-to-college enrollment particularly for our high-achieving high school students. As you know, enrollment is a critical initial indicator for completion, persistence, and completion. And the research tells us that students that go directly into college after high school persist at a significantly higher rate than students who delay enrollment or students who are in other age groups. Next slide. So here are the figures in stark relief. As the Commissioner commented, we've had a downward trend in high school to higher ed enrollment overall. This is we've had a steady decline in the direct to high school enrollment. When you include students who enroll in out-of-state institutions. Direct enrollment in college increases, however, still falls short of what's needed to fulfill our goals for Talent Strong Texas. You also see on this slide the significant impact of the pandemic, illustrated here by the drop of nearly 7 percentage points from the fall of 2019 to the fall of 2020. So as the Commissioner said, this is a critical issue for us in our state, and a critically important talent opportunity that we have to correct. Next slide. When we take a look at our highest achieving high school students, the situation is similarly concerning. What you see here are the number and percentage of top 10% high school graduates who are not enrolling in higher ed in Texas or out of state. As the Commissioner said, this is a bit over 17% of our high achieving students. More than 5,700 of those high achieving high school graduates are not yet enrolled. And as you can see, that represents 17% of that graduating class, both an increasing number and an increasing percentage of our top 10% students. And as the Commissioner said, these are students who have direct enrollment to virtually every Texas institution, automatic enrollment. So of significant concern. Slide, please. When we take a closer look at those almost 6,000 students, we see concern across the demographics as well. 75% of these students, a bit more than 75% of these top 10% students are from underrepresented populations. And as you know from the work in Talent Strong Texas, our commitment to equity is both strengthened and critically important to our ability to meet the state's objectives. Engaging these students and supporting them and pursuing credentials of value is critical to their future and to our future as a state. In addition, these students represent some of our best and brightest, and their future truly is our future. So now that you're armed with the data, it's my pleasure to hand this presentation over to Jarrell Booker, whose new title I won't get correct, Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education, close, and to share more about the equity initiatives who are aimed at addressing this issue.
Go to the next slide. Good morning. Members, the next slide comes from our Talent Strong document that maybe you've seen that we've been passing out, but the point of it is just to drive home how important it is that the work we have, and Dr. Ferris kind of led us to that, to kind of discuss, and the Commission also discussed how important the equity issues for us to hit our goals and hit our targets. So this first slide kind of lays out how important this policy issue is, and hopefully we can have a good discussion. Next slide. The data is staggering. We'll do one more. The data is staggering, more so that when you're trying to address this issue, sometimes you have students that are struggling in school. If they're struggling in high school, they're not doing well. Those are really hard students to get to come to college already by design if everything was working perfectly. But what the data is showing us is that we have students that did everything they're supposed to do in high school. They were top 10. The state put statutes and laws in place to help them just go right from high school straight to college with automatic admissions, and we're still not seeing them in our enrollment. So we have a number of, well, I just think our agency is uniquely positioned to actually lead the state in helping the state, providing tools to actually address this student population. If we can get them going first, that will already help the data that Lori already started, and then we can actually go to the next and the next and so forth. What I think is interesting for what we have here in our first project, which I'm going to discuss, and Matt Parsons is going to discuss the second project, is that the Texas First Early High School Completion Program and Scholarship. Since I am going first, we call it Texas First. I'm going to take a break in a second and allow the Commission to tell you actually where that title came from, and then I will have Dr. Suzanne Morales-Vail actually get to the specifics of the project, and then we'll turn it over to Matt Parsons for the second. Commission, you want to?
Yeah, just to jump in, I've got to acknowledge Ricky Raven for naming the Texas First Scholarship Program. So we came to this issue. Some of y'all who've been on the board for a while will know, because we were digging into the issue of the brain drain to other states. So we know that New England schools, Mid-Atlantic schools, Midwestern schools, and non-Texas SEC schools are aggressively recruiting Texas students. We have more than 100 national institutions have physical presence just in the DFW region, where they're aggressively recruiting Texas students. So we had a number of conversations with the board and with Chairman Creighton, with other key legislators about how we might provide, just be candid, our Texas institutions an advantage in being able to have sort of the first opportunity to enroll these students. And want to say publicly, and I appreciate Ricky Raven's contributions and leadership on this, including naming the program as Texas First.
So with that top 10%, I think it was maybe almost 50% of those students in that pie chart to say were African American Hispanic students. 50%, and they were already given automatic admission. So getting to that population is super important, and telling them early on that if you're doing this, we, the state of Texas, is also helping you in not only finish and graduate, but as you will see from this program, walk you right on into college and even support that financially, which we all know is a critical point for some of these students actually attending. Next slide. So with this project, state law, Senate Bill 1888, was passed to actually allow this project to take place. So in that statute, it lays out a number of things that we have to have. And one of them is eligibility, which I'll speak about in a second, and the other is identifying students who've shown some sort of college readiness, right? So we know that unfortunately, just because you do well in high school doesn't necessarily mean you are college ready. We used to think that's the case, but we're making sure that this population is actually college ready. So if you demonstrate that early, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, kind of like they do in sports, if you've demonstrated you're a really good athlete, the colleges are coming for you even at that point. Well, we should do that for the academically successful students also. And then, so at that point, if you've achieved a number of different points that Suzanne will talk about, and you've shown college readiness, you are now eligible to also receive a scholarship credit, which is equivalent to our Texas grant. And if you're not familiar, it's about $5,100, $5,200 a semester, so you can actually get it for the fall, spring, and summer for the entire year. So these students can actually go to college early, what the design is. Next slide. The eligible institutions are laid out by statute. Obviously, we'd love all the institutions at some point actually be a part of this, but the statute was very specific to the research institutions, and that's what you see here, who Dr. Morales-Vale will discuss. We've worked very closely with to actually design the rest of this program. Also, I'd be remiss that since the statute was passed in the 87th legislature, there was a pandemic happening. I don't know, everybody may have missed that, but Dr. Suzanne Morales-Vale was very instrumental in standing up this project from that statute. She's very instrumental in getting us to where we are today in all the meetings we've had with these institutions, and therefore I would like to turn it over to her to be able to deal with the more specific program design, and I'll be able to answer any questions.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Dr. Booker. As outlined in statute, agency staff collaborated with enrollment and admissions leadership at eligible institutions, along with TEA staff, to craft the proposed rules establishing the student eligibility for the Texas First High School Diploma. Eligibility addresses not only overall academic knowledge and skills, but also by specific subject areas as per statute. These requirements were also designed to consider social and emotional maturity for early admissions. Next slide. A brief overview of the program design starts with students working with their high school counselors to determine the best options to demonstrate early academic readiness and to meet eligibility requirements. The school district then issues a diploma to the students who meet the eligibility requirements. And again, as highlighted by Commissioner Harrison, the diploma is equivalent to the distinguished level of achievement. Because the students who earn the Texas First diploma are not guaranteed admission to the institution based solely on the completion of the diploma, they will still need to complete the admissions process at the eligible institution where they would like to attend. Once the earned diploma is verified, the coordinating board then issues a scholarship credit to the graduate for use at the eligible institution. Slide. The slide shows an overview of the timeline. So the rules are posted to the Texas Register for the 30-day public comment period, actually starting tomorrow through May 29th. The proposed rules will then be provided to the board for its consideration for approval at the July 28th meeting, with the effective date 20 days later, roughly August 17th. We anticipate that the Texas First high school student to graduate is December 22, and the first enrollment at an eligible institution in January 2023 for the spring semester. Slide. As this program offers new opportunities for Texas students, we know outreach is extremely important. Some key activities in our statewide outreach campaign include Texas On-Course Counselor and Advisor modules, webinars, informational brochures, and also a joint printable document published to both TEA and the coordinating board websites geared towards students and their families to inform them about the program. TEA will also be working with school districts to ensure that they inform all entering ninth graders and their families of this program, so counselors have time to identify and work with students, including African American, Hispanic, and economically disadvantaged students who may be interested in early high school graduation and the scholarship awarded under this program. Now I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Matt Parson, Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Innovation, to discuss another program designed to address this population of students.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morales-Bell. Good morning, Chairman Premiers and board members. I am Matt Parson, Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Innovation, and I am excited to discuss the Texas Leadership Scholars Program. Next slide, please. One more. Okay. As it's been discussed by my esteemed colleagues, the state's demographics have shifted, and a focus on equity remains at the top of mind as we pursue the goals of Talent Strong Texas. The Texas Leadership Scholars Program will serve as the state's premier merit-based scholarship and leadership development opportunity for high-achieving emerging leaders who are low-income, with a priority for students eligible for automatic admission. This program will encourage students to take advantage of the best we have to offer at Texas universities, from mentoring and support, and to have the opportunity for these students to participate in leadership development. Those selected will have 100% of their board-designated tuition and fees covered through a combination of federal, state, and institutional aid, plus a room and board stipend. This represents a strategic allocation of GEAR funds, funding the first two cohorts. Next slide, please. As we lead with equity, the goal of the Texas Leadership Scholars Program is to create the premier leadership program across the state. This cohort-based approach will aim to ensure our best and brightest have the supports necessary to ensure they enroll in one of our state institutions. We will look forward to this upcoming fall for our first cohort of 250 students. Next slide, please. To be selected as one of the leadership scholars, eligible students will be selected from Texas high schools and demonstrate an exemplary record of academic achievement, as well as demonstrated examples of leadership potential. Students will be nominated by their high school counselors, teachers, or college and career advisors. The student application will launch and invitations will be sent to high school counselors, teachers, and/or college and career advisors to nominate students. Texas Leadership Scholars must be eligible to receive financial aid and be Texas Grants eligible. Finally, upon graduation, students must have been accepted into an institution of higher education. Next slide, please. This cohort-based approach will allow for a multitude of things. Students will be able to participate in scholar-specific living learning communities for their first 2 years of the program, if offered by their specific institution. Participating in this cohort experience will create a holistic peer experience, preparing students for life and career. Students will have access to premier undergraduate research and internship opportunities available throughout our Texas public universities and with employers. Additionally, students will be able to participate actively in mentoring and leadership development opportunities, including special events with state policymakers, business leaders, and develop lifelong networks with community, with other emerging leaders from across the state. Events, including travel, will be offered at no cost to the students. Finally, students will be able to participate in job shadowing opportunities during winter and spring breaks to ensure access and visibility to potential careers. Next slide, please. Finally, students that participate will have a plethora of opportunities to build their soft skills, as well as participate in on-campus events to enhance their value proposition to employers and potentially pursue additional educational opportunities. Opportunities will include the following: high-impact programming, including resume writing, group service projects, and preparation for graduate or professional schools, just to name a few. Next slide, please. In closing, this premier program will foster the next generation of leaders emerging from our Texas institutions of higher education. I'm happy to answer any questions.
If I could just jump in right before the questions, I do think also important to underline and acknowledge the strategic investment of GEAR resources by Governor Abbott and the legislative leadership. We're especially appreciative of Brady Franks, Sarah Hicks, Marion Wallace, Daniel Warner, and key members of the legislature prioritized this issue and specifically allocated funds to the coordinating board to work in partnership with the institutions so that we can move aggressively and fund the first two cohorts of the Leadership Scholars Program with 4-year commitments on the scale of what Matt just outlined. This is a major investment in Texas students, so we're all excited about this opportunity and deeply grateful again to the governor and legislative leadership for entrusting the coordinating board with this important initiative.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. Board members, any questions for our panel?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Wilson.
Can you kind of walk me through the process? I'm a high school student. This Texas First, I graduate early when I'm ready. Do I apply when I'm a freshman or junior, or are these only juniors, or how do they, if you can kind of walk me through, if I'm a high school student, how do I?
Sure, I'm a tag team with Suzanne Morales-Vail, but first is the outreach for us. I don't want to, we have to tell the entire world about this project, particularly K-12 counselors. And part of that, Commissioner, is also because these students are preparing for their high school careers and laying out classes. So if they know this is in place, they can start to lay out classes to finish faster, to do all the things they need to be able to complete high school in a certain time. And at that point, Suzanne.
So as we mentioned, the student, the families and the students, every 9th grade student will be informed by the school district of this opportunity. So students and families who are possibly interested in this will contact their counselors, and then the counselor will map out and look through all of the eligibility requirements, including a GPA requirement and certain scores on various tests that students already ought to take, and then determine how they're going to meet all the eligibility requirements, not only overall but by subject area. And once they map that out, including possible test taking in the summers and other opportunities, then they can be able to determine, yes, you've made all these requirements, you've met all the eligibility, and you'll be able to graduate early in fall or in spring. And they'll establish that, and then the student the school district will notify the coordinating board. We'll get things going in the background as far as getting that scholarship credit ready for the student. Once they graduate, that credit gets issued to the student, and meanwhile, also the counselor will help the student to apply at the eligible institutions, because as I noted, that is still a required process.
If I could, scholarship credit is a coupon that they can take to the 4-year institution, or they get that before?
Right. The 4-year institutions on the list would basically front that money until the credit comes back and versus the institution for that. Also, we've been working with TEA on this also. It's not just us. So TEA is also working with how these things are designated on transcripts, so nothing is missed for these students to actually be able to walk right into one of those institutions.
So if I could underline an important point, Mr. Wilson. So we work with the institutions, so with the universities, about, well, what are the markers they use for placing students into courses and programs, and also what do they award credit for? So when Suzanne is talking about demonstrating early college readiness, like in the 4 core subject areas plus a language, that could be, for example, like AP tests. So to underline Jarrell's point, important for students to know this is available, and if they can get scores of 3s or better on AP tests, which will guarantee them credit, at the receiving institution in Texas, that's one of the ways that they could meet the requirements and demonstrate early readiness for college. So it's designed to fit hand in glove with the criteria the institutions themselves already use for placement. Now, one of the issues that folks brought up early on is, well, could a freshman do this? And at least in the initial implementation, it's set up so students would have to have 22 high school credits. So it's you might have a student who would be a sophomore who would be eligible, but generally students will need to get through their junior year to have accumulated enough credits to be able to take advantage of the opportunity.
In the ideal world, I would graduate 6 months early or 1 year early if I.
That's right. And just like we
got
bring
up in time.
blue chip athletes in for spring ball, we've talked to institutions about is how they might bring high achieving students in a semester or a year early and go ahead and get them on track. And I will say, so before these out-of-state institutions have released their admissions offers and their financial aid awards, we want the students to already be wearing the T-shirts and on the campuses of our premier Texas institutions.
So it seems like the challenge is informing the counselors of the program and inspiring them to reach out and kind of proactively approach these students to recruit them. So, I mean, it seems to me that's because there's no shortage of, wouldn't think of scholarships available for students in high school. I mean, there's all sorts of things available. So this is just kind of more of a hands-on approach to grab them early and show them a path. And ideally, they would go into college with some college credits. Is that the thought?
Absolutely.
So how does this, the 6,000 students that have disappeared from the rolls, is that a different program, or is this intended to capture some of them? And if so, how do we make sure this doesn't just that the others that are already going to college don't wake up and take advantage of this, and we don't get any of the 6,000?
All right. It is intended, and that goes back to the issue of outreach. Not only the districts where that might happen more often than not only the counselors that may happen more often than not, but also the parents. Usually, when you have high academic students, the information is just there, and they tend to gravitate to it or find it. But with our on-course team and the resources we have, and in partnership with TEA, it's going to be an active engagement. It won't be a passive engagement. So that's sort of how we're going to pretty much target.
We're going to figure out what those 6,000 students, what's their profile, and then kind of identify and see if you can find them.
That's right.
I have a question about the counselors. What is the ratio of counselors in Texas?
I haven't checked in a while, but it's probably in the 300-400 to 1.
Yeah.
And it'll vary from school to school. But
That's still an issue, because I see patients that are counselors and parents who say they don't have the access to be able to get the information. Like, this is going to be a great program, no doubt. But the reality, and that's a great point, Ms. Schwartz, is that you almost still have to search out. And like Jarrell says, we have to get that message out there that it's available. Because if you're a low-income student and the people that are going to be looking that we'd like to take advantage of this, to let them know about it, they almost have to be searching and knowing about it. Because the work that the counselors are doing, they're overworked. They just can't get to everybody. To Emma's point.
And I think a lot of these underrepresented this population, they're first generation.
And they don't know the opportunities.
Not gravitating to things.
Yes, they don't know about the possibilities. I know, because I talk to the parents and the students. And they don't know what's available. They see my diplomas and they say, oh, how can I do that if we can only afford it? I said, well, you can. I tell the students and parents, you need to go to your counselor. Oh, they haven't reached out because there's too many students. So we have to be more proactive.
I mean, it seems like we're going to have to help the counselor. I mean, the counselors are overworked, underpaid already.
Right.
To rely on them with a session to distribute that, it seems like we're almost going to have to create our own infrastructure around all of that and do most of the lifting ourselves, I would think.
And members, I just want to remind you, one, we do have ADV virtual advisors, so we're actually able to reach out to students directly ourselves. Now that's a benefit that we have, and remind them and ping them that this is available ourselves. our on-course team and our new Assistant Commissioner, Laura Brennan. She's working on a lot of design work to actually get to how counselors are working with students, how students actually get information. Commissioners allowed us to be real intentional, and that's the key, real intentional on how information is coming to and from students and how they get their information. And you'll probably hear more about that in the coming year, about how we're rolling out our new college and career advising work that we have.
Just to add one or 2 points, we're definitely thinking along similar lines. So, it has to be sort of a both-and approach where we're supporting the counselors and the college and career advisors with training and information, but we're going to have to engage students and families directly. So we did recommend, and Senator Creighton included in the legislation, a legal requirement that students receive information about the program at the first of each academic year. And then we will also, the coordinating board will be launching this new one-stop My Texas Future portal that includes our multiple student advising resources that students can use to help plan their high school graduation plans as well as their higher education plans, identify scholarship opportunities like the Texas First Scholarship, and go ahead and start those applications. So we'll curate the new Apply Texas and other resources all in one place. So students won't have to Google around. They can just go to My Texas Future and identify opportunities that might be a good fit for them.
So do we know how this 17% number compares to other similar states that have a lot of job opportunities for their students and have maybe the same or similar demographic makeup like Florida or California? Do we know in those states, do they have the same issue?
I don't have that data with me, Mr. Torn, but I'm happy to follow up with you.
Okay, and then my follow-up question to that is simply why? Why are these students not enrolling in higher education? And I think what you will find, and I'm certainly not the research expert that you guys are, I think you will find that most of them need to make money. And what they're doing instead of enrolling in higher education is they're getting a job to support their families. So what I think is critical, you can do all the educating you want, you can give them all the scholarships you want, but these kids need money now for their families to survive. And what we have to do at these institutions, they're more likely to be able to fit their life schedule into a community college where they can work full time and go to school at night. So, and I understand they're not qualified. What we have to do is 2 things. We have to meet these kids where they are, not where we want them to be. And secondly, we have to educate them as best we can as to how this degree is going to improve their family's lifestyle in the long run, without not understanding or being insensitive to the short-term needs that these kids have.
We would definitely agree with you, Mr. Torn. As we've worked on this more, Jarrell alluded to it, but one of the recommendations that we would make in this next session would be expanding the opportunity to all our institutions of higher education. So if students need to be, if they need to stay local, they need to stay at the regional university, or or a community college is a better fit for them, that we shouldn't discriminate against those students being able to take advantage of these opportunities and again, meet students more where they're at. I think your intuition is right. If we zoom out and we look at our labor market participation, we have seen a bump in labor market participation for 16 to 19-year-olds. And so it seems like that there are a lot of students that are opting to take entry-level jobs. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times those are entry-level jobs that are relatively low skill and low mobility. So there's a short-term urgency, but some of these students may be trading off the long-term career prospects. And so we we do need to do a better job engaging students across the board. Our community college enrollments last fall were down 85,000 students. Our broad access universities were down 10,000 students, and we lost about 122,000 students in K-12 that dropped off the rolls. So we've got approaching 250,000 Texas students that may be, many of them may be working, but where that creates a vulnerability for them and their families, and we would argue for the state over time. We need to better engage and re-engage these students.
And Mr. Tony, if I may, you make an excellent point about working to make money now. Students get the now. They don't do optional, and the long-term planning is, and you have kids know that they don't do long-term planning. But I've seen too often where these jobs pay daily now. You work in the service industry, they'll pay daily. I know a Jimmy John's manager can make $50,000, but that might be where it stops, and maybe that's enough. And that's what we're competing against, and I know the institutions are trying to be very responsive to that. We're coupling not only our advising and not only our outreach with our Texas Works program, which is giving internships for when you come. So we're trying to say, look, we can help you get through this because we think there's a long-term value, and we're being very thoughtful about all of those moving parts. But you're spot on, and like the Commissioner says, we are seeing that sort of exodus at that 16, 19. They're able to do Amazon. They're able to do things and make it work. But they don't realize what's going to happen when they're 26, 30, 40. It's really hard to be delivering Amazon packages at my age, to be quite candid.
Let me say that I'm really, really excited about this program. I think we definitely need to do it. We definitely need to keep our best in our state. Losing so many students, they can be advancing to different field, different job, different opportunity. I think we definitely. I'm very excited about this initiative doing that. I have the same question as Mr. Ton, and we are speculating money, and they're working, and I'm wondering to see if we can do a little survey or a little interview with those 7,000 students to dig deeper why they are not. They are automatic enrollment. Now, we say other states coming into and trying to get them. They are not going out of state anyway, so they're not going to college. They don't like college, or they don't know how to go to college, or things like that nature. So I think maybe there's a deeper scenario there. Obviously, at the surface, is that they need to make money and they have paying tuition. But somehow there's a disconnect with what they see as a college path, and if they are 10%, upper 10% students, they're good students. I want them to go to graduate school. I want them to be a PhD. I want them to do management. I want them to do a lot of good things instead of just stop there. I'm not saying that high schooler cannot be advancing. Actually, in my company, I have all the high schooler graduate. They're all managers. They're making six figures. So it's not that they cannot go advance, but I think if with that kind of talent in our state, we're losing it. I think we need to blame ourselves, not really taking care of them. But I think one way is why is this a disconnect with what they're doing? They are doing high school. They're good students. They're not best. They're good students. They know academically. They are good. They can do that. Why they're not signing up with the college? I think that is maybe there's a lot of cultural or family and all of the issues combined together that preventing them from really take that step. And we need to do whatever we need to do to try to help them to bridge that gap so that we can get them into our college and get them the advancement they deserve, I think. But like I said, I'm very excited about this program. I think that we need to definitely.
It's a great program, and I think my initial question is the 250 for the first two cohorts, first year. So who's the decision maker in terms of all these great applications?
Sure. So they're going to be, for this first year, we're going to have a portal that goes up where students can apply, but it's going to be their advisors, teachers, administrators at their school and their high school that are going to select these students. And then we're going to have a selection process essentially to cull it down to 250. So that ultimately will happen. We're working with our lead administration institution on that, and we'll have some of those decisions nailed down by July 15th.
So do we decide? Does the
No.
coordinating board decide, or are you putting together an advisory committee to kind of vet them, or what?
It'll be advisory-based committee, but essentially it'll go through, their high schools, first, and then we'll have, something that we're gonna be standing up to cull that down. So that will be here, decided in the next.
And is there a plan in place to measure the outcomes?
Yes.
So we know whether it worked or not?
Yeah, Commissioner Keller doesn't do anything unless we know it worked. That's for sure. But I just want to be clear that we're talking about two separate programs, though.
Right.
And so with the first one, come one, come all, we'll take as many as we can actually get. As that one, because of I'm sure the financial costs in the 4 year, they do have a certain number that hopefully we can expand if we get good feedback. We will track both of them.
So I was curious about, Ms. High, looking into states that always have a tradition of doing really, really well. I'm thinking of Massachusetts, North Carolina, in terms of getting folks and completing folks from high school into higher education. Do we look at that, best practices, in terms of those states, other than just the populous states Mr. Torn mentioned? Of course, we always think of California and Florida because they have a lot of students, right? But the percentage of folks that are getting good results.
There's two areas where we can dig deeper. One is in benchmarking states who are similar to us in terms of demographics and growth and those sorts of things. But as you're pointing out, there are also those best-in-class practices or states that we can learn from. And we've got a major initiative that the Commissioner talked a bit about around understanding student success practices, where we can also draw on research and literature from around the country of things where people, places where people are finding success. I think the great thing about Texas is we've got scale from the beginning. Like, we think about scale from the beginning. The bad news about a state like Texas is that scale is a challenge, right? A lot of these programs are very high touch and intensive. And so really trying to find the balance between what technology can provide in terms of outreach and connection, and what people, like what we can affordably provide in terms of people, I think is always going to be a challenge that confronts us in Texas. But I think for me, while I'm not happy that there's 6,000 students is a number we can get our arms around.
Yes.
Right? It's not 600,000. I mean, we do have populations of 600,000 that we have to worry about, but 6,000 is a place that we can zero in on, and we can better understand where these students are coming from, what high school pathways. Odds are high that they're concentrated in certain areas of the state, where we can work not only through these kinds of programs, but also through regional collaborations that are going on, who are very focused on being sure they're shepherding their students through the education, their K-12 experience successfully, and then on into post-secondary in the workforce. So I think part of what I'm excited about from the staff, from my point of view, for these programs is that they're very intentionally focused on a specific population that we can understand what the state brings to the table in cooperation with our local initiatives and the folks who are actually dealing with students every day. And as Jarrell pointed out, the ADVI chatbot, like, we shouldn't underestimate that. I'm remembering back to a conversation we had in January about where students get their information, and they're digital natives, and so our ability to directly connect them with them, I think, is a very powerful tool that we've got in addition to these other supports.
I was thinking junior high principals, junior high counselors, that's where we need to start. Because I think the horse is out of the barn if they try to feed it right before ninth grade. Yeah. We've got to, to start thinking about this. These programs are great, but we've got to be doing that at the junior high level, I think.
And we do have the middle school as well as the high school college and career advisors connected back to us. So since the legislature helped facilitate the transfer of Texas On-Course to the coordinating board, we have a network of more than 18,000 college and career advisors that advise more than 95% of the secondary students across the state, where we're able to push out in real time. And so when we're talking about webinars and that kind of thing, where we provide regular just-in-time training and webinars and information to to broad networks of thousands of counselors and advisors, so that students can make a plan, so that, you know, they can help students get on track to take advantage of these opportunities. Gerald, do you know, sorry, just to put you on the spot, but do you know offhand how many students we've been texting with the Advi chatbot at this point?
Over 200,000.
Members, other questions?
Yeah, what was the amount of
I'm sorry,
money
Mr. Wilson?
allocated by the governor for the program? Total dollars?
Just in scholarships for the, so the two programs, so the Texas First Scholarship is actually funded from the savings of the students not being enrolled in the high schools, and so that's why it's able to be more open-ended. So we could accommodate as many students as want to take advantage of that opportunity. On the Leadership Scholars Program, just scholarships would be a maximum of about $10 million a year commitments in scholarship, just in the scholarship side, and then there'll be another, say, $1 million a year, or $1 million or so on administration outreach and marketing and engagement, those kinds of efforts.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Ms. Williams? Yes.
In addition to the Texas Encore counselors and the advisor counselors, for the counselors that are actually at the schools, boots on the ground with the students, is there a way we can incentivize them to push this program instead of all the other programs, in addition to all the other programs that they're pushing? If I'm a counselor and I have 400 students and I have just tons of programs being thrown at me, how can we ensure that our program, these two programs, are what I am going to talk to those students about first?
Well, so a couple things. The Advi chatbot, and I think I said a little over 200,000, about 225,000, but those are mostly seniors, so it goes back to what Dr. Ferris said. We do need to start to get more and more of the younger ones. But to kind of push them, and it's kind of like the squeaky wheel, it's the oil. We need to be intentional. It just can't be a project that we put out there and ignore. It's got to be over and over, and then they will respond because they're going to see a benefit. So we got to show the benefit. So not only being intentional about reaching out to them, maybe we could look in some sort of incentivizing, but then, you know, we can look at that. I'll definitely consider that.
It doesn't have to be monetary. Let's be really creative.
It could be recognition.
It could be recognition. It could be I'm a counselor that wants to get a master's degree in something, and I get some sort of credit toward that degree, you know.
And we've done incentives before for counselors to participate in things, so that's obviously something we would be willing to look at.
Bottom line is we're competing against a ton of things, and we're talking about students who already have the opportunities to go. So we're just giving them another avenue. So what are we going to do differently to differentiate this so they will take advantage of it? Because the opportunities are already there.
And this population might take 1,000. They might. So there could be a natural disincentive.
And then the other thing to Sam's comments, I agree that there are just tons and tons of students who have to help provide for their families, but also I bet in that 17% you have students who are middle income that are not taking advantage of it because the narrative out there is higher ed is so expensive, and I don't want to take on the debt for that. So I'm making, you know, what I'm making right now. I'm not thinking long term. I'm of that generation where everything is right now. So I'm thinking about right now. And they just don't, you know, they think it's too expensive and it's unachievable and unattainable. And again, there's an opportunity for us there to say that's not true. It is attainable. It is achievable. But part of it is.
That's a good point, Ms. Williams. I think we all need to do a better job of, you know, we always hear about higher education being really expensive, but Commissioner, I think you said 58%, is that correct, of students, or 56% of students are graduating with no debt right now in the state of Texas. And so I mean, that is a higher percentage than a lot of people think, and that I thought too, when you think about that, because it's always like, okay, people are going to school and they're always coming out with all this debt. So it starts out with a negative narrative, right? So we've got to let people know that, you know, higher education is affordable. People have choices, like Jarrell says, community colleges. It fits a lot for a lot of folks that want to be able to start education. People have choices: 4-year universities, 2 years, you know, community colleges, technical colleges. So all that is higher education, and it provides different degree certificates and degrees. So there's a lot of opportunities, and that's what our job as a coordinating board is, to provide access, affordability, lack of duplication. And so there are opportunities out there.
I wanted to ask real quick. So does this program, will it be able to coincide with the other sort of accelerator programs? So, for example, dual credit AP. If a student has managed to accumulate those, will those credits be able to transfer along with this, or is this only for those who just want to graduate high school early?
Oh, that's a great question, Matthew. Absolutely, yes. In fact, in the eligibility criteria, a lot of what you just mentioned checks the box. So these are ways not only overall to show readiness, but by the subject areas that Commissioner. I wanted to also just mention, especially Ms. Williams, to address your question on incentivizing. The other thing I think is really important is to build it into the normal processes and procedures that happen in high school. And one of those is testing. So we have the STAR testing, we have the PSAT, and some other testing. And so if we can train counselors to look for those students who score well on those tests, that's the low-hanging fruit. And those students can then be encouraged, told about this program, and then, you know, that can already get the ball rolling. So if we can figure out the way to make it a part of their normal process as opposed to new or different, I think that also will help recruit these students and get the information out to the students.
Dr. Morales, Vale, you're exactly right. What happens if students do really well in the PSAT, they start getting letters and forms from every school around the country if you're in the high percentage. And so that, again, that's where it starts. In the junior high, when they take those PSATs, they start getting all these flyers. The parents say, oh, I got a letter from, you know, this state or this. And so, I mean, and these are like, we are really, students are deciding between top level, like we're talking about, New England schools, our state schools, all over. So it becomes, I mean, the good thing about it, it puts higher education on the map for students. So it's as Ms. Williams said, it's a competitive environment. Sam didn't hear that. Okay, so other questions, members, for our panel? If not, thank you all so much. This was a wonderful discussion. I appreciate all the work y'all are doing and continuing to do. Thank you, Ms. Fye. Thank you, Jarrell Booker. Thank you, Dr. Morales Vale, and thank you, Matt Parsons. Okay, great. Thank you all very much. So next, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is matters relating to the full board. Agenda item 8A is an update on building a talent-strong Texas. Another great topic, which is important because this is what we're all about, the future of higher education in the state of Texas. Melissa Henderson, welcome. Associate Commissioner for Strategic Partnerships, will provide this update and be available for questions. Ms. Henderson.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
Y'all hear?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman Fadias and members. Melissa Henderson, Associate Commissioner for Strategic Partnerships and Executive Director of the Texas Higher Education Foundation. Next slide. As you know, in follow-up to your approval at the January board meeting, we recently released the revised statewide strategic plan for higher education, Building a Talent-Strong Texas. As you have in front of you, you should have received printed copies of the plan, and we're excited to share them with you. This should be in your materials. As the Commissioner and others have shared this plan with presidents and chancellors, other institutional leaders, faculty and staff, business leaders, policymakers, and other partners, the response has been very positive. We've heard enthusiasm for the focus on measuring value for students of the credentials they earn, for the reintroduction of research and development into the plan, for broadening our lens to be more inclusive of adult learners and a wider variety of types of credentials earned, and to the renewed commitment to equity. Next slide. In our initial rollout, we've had strong engagement on Twitter and LinkedIn. In 1 month of running the campaign, we've seen 11,000 impressions on Twitter and almost 9,000 impressions on LinkedIn. Governor Abbott retweeted the plan announcement shortly after it was rolled out. We also sent a mass email via GovDelivery to the institutional leadership and policymakers, which had a very strong open rate. Next slide. The campaign also included display ads on the Texas Tribune's website, in their daily emails, and some podcast mentions. Also updated has been the homepage of the Coordinating Board website, which had over 1,000 unique visitors in just 3 weeks. As we look beyond this initial rollout, we're working closely with institutional partners to continue examining the data that will inform the technical supplementation that we will produce later this summer to provide greater detail on methodology, sources, and baseline data. Alongside that, we are also working to develop data dashboards that we anticipate releasing later this fall that will provide deeper, more actionable insights to our institutional leaders across the Talent Strong Texas measures. We are excited to continue to update you about our progress and to share data and learnings along the way. Commissioner, anything you would add to that?
Just one point in particular that I'd like to say, deeply appreciate our partnerships with workforce entities, particularly chambers and major employers, not only help provide input in developing the plan, but also as we're rolling out the plan. That includes where some of the major chambers, for example, are having me come present the plan at their summer meetings, and we're continuing discussions with them and with Texas Association of Business about how we can enlist employers and the network of chambers across the state to help increase the visibility of the Building a Talent Strong Texas plan.
Sure. Okay. So with that, I'm happy to pause for any questions.
Okay, members, do we have any questions for Ms. Henderson? Thank you for that important update. Agenda item 8B is consideration and possible action to accept gifts and donations to the board. Members, the gifts and the donations are listed in your materials. Nicole Bunker Henderson, General Counsel, is available for questions as soon as she does the report, or the report is in your packet.
Yes, this is a regular board item for you all, so the gifts are listed in your packet. If you have any questions,
otherwise,
acknowledge your gifts.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, do I have a motion to accept the gifts and donations as listed?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Schwartz. Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. Any discussion? Members, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 8C is an update on Texas transfer initiatives. Ray Martinez, Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education, and Elizabeth Mayer, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available for questions. Welcome, Deputy Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Williams, members of the board. I'm pleased to be here with you this morning. I think you all by now are familiar with the fact that with every one of your quarterly board meetings, we're going to come before you and give you an update on the work that we're doing to improve transfer pathways, particularly for students who are currently enrolled in our 50 community colleges and campuses, more than 50 campuses across the state, who desire to transfer to a four-year institution of higher education here in the state. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago with some community college, about 500 community college coaches and mentors and counselors on the topic of transfer. In one of the presentations, somebody talked about some very recent survey data of Texas community college students that showed that of the survey that they did, and I think this was survey data that was only a year or two old, it showed that some 76% of students that they surveyed who are currently enrolled in our community colleges are interested in transferring to a four-year institution. Now, of course, we know there are lots of reasons why ultimately not all 76% may end up transferring, but the percentage of students who are transferring is very low right now. And what we're focused on, and this has been a priority for Commissioner Keller since day one, and as you heard in his opening remarks today, remains a priority for the agency, and that is what can we do to partner and collaborate with our institutions of higher education, with our community colleges, with our four-year public institutions, to increase the number of students that do have a transparent and student-friendly pathway so that they can achieve that transfer if, in fact, they want to do so. It's a high priority for this agency, and as you all have heard us talk about before, what we did within the first few months of Commissioner Keller being commissioner was to begin to work with the institutions, community colleges in our 4 years. We formed a work group. We worked throughout most of 2020, and we listened, and we ultimately, with your support, and you all had a special call board meeting in early 2021 where you adopted what we now call the Texas Transfer Framework. And that transfer framework is taking our existing, the agency currently has longstanding authority in the Education Code to develop what are called fields of study curricula. So various disciplines where we develop a pathway between community colleges and our public four-year institutions, biology, political science, sociology, criminal justice, et cetera. We have about 16 currently articulated field of study pathways. And what we are doing with your support and your leadership is to take those pathways and revise them, those fields of study curricula, and revise them into the new Texas Transfer Framework. It's important work. It is time-intensive work because we're convening what we call subcommittees of various faculty members to help guide our work in this area. And it's something that personally I'm extremely privileged to be a part of and appreciate greatly. As the Commissioner knows, appreciate greatly that the Commissioner has really been, I think, at the forefront of this issue, not just as Commissioner, but even before he became Commissioner of Higher Education. So with that, let me turn it over to my colleague, Elizabeth Mayer. The heavy lifting is being done by a great staff here at the agency. I get to come up and make a few comments, but really the hard work is being done by a team of folks here at the agency that really all deserve great credit for the momentum that we've been able to sustain since this initiative started back in early 2020. Elizabeth Mayer is our Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, and she is our lead on actually implementing this important work. Elizabeth.
Morning, Chairman Frias and board members. Nice to see you all again. So to Ray's point, we are making good progress on the revision of the fields of study based upon the new framework, which was adopted by the board in March of 2021. So at this point, we have had subcommittees meet on criminal justice and business administration. They met last fall. And just as a caveat, so these folks meet for about 8 to 10 hours. It is not a quick meeting. They meet typically over 2 to 3 days and really hammer out what they feel like students are going to need to be prepared for upper division coursework, and they develop the lower division courses. So we're finalizing the collection of the directed electives from the universities for these two fields of study. We anticipate those revised fields of study for business administration and criminal justice to be submitted to the commissioner within the coming weeks. We're finalizing a few of the directed electives, which is one of those pieces of the new framework. And so earlier this year, the following subcommittees met for political science, sociology, and social work. Each of these subcommittees developed the revised fields of study, which were approved by the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee earlier this month. And so the next part of the process is these will be posted to the Texas Register for 30 days for public comment. And then we'll work on collecting those directed electives from the universities. After those directed electives are collected, the fully revised fields of study for political science, social work, and sociology will be submitted to the commissioner for final review and approval. So what do we have coming up? So in May, we're going to have the psychology subcommittee meet, and then in June, we're going to have the subcommittee for biology meet. And then lastly, at the TTAC meeting we had earlier this month, the committee established subcommittees for education, nursing, and exercise science. So the agency will send a call out for nominations from faculty across the state, and those subcommittees will likely begin meeting in the fall. So in summary, upon review and approval by the Commissioner of the Criminal Justice and Business Administration revised fields of study, we are close to having 2 completed fields of study that have been developed within the new framework. Once these fields of study are approved by the Commissioner, they will become effective and will be posted on the agency website. I also want to thank the over 160 faculty members who have participated on the 5 subcommittees that have met since we began revising the fields of study. And to Ray's point, also wanted to thank the fantastic internal team that we have running these very extensive subcommittees over almost 1 a month. So, and that concludes my remarks.
Thank you both. I can't thank you enough, the staff, all the faculty members that have, and the universities that have come together. This is a high priority for me as commissioner. We've talked about it for 2 years, and thank you for doing this hard work. I can tell you how many current board members, past board members, and that legislators, this is a big topic because students, we're really solving student needs and major concerns. So this is impactful work that the coordinating board does that doesn't get a lot of attention or glory, but as Commissioner Martinez said, it's like the work that's done on the ground that really makes an impact and helping students in terms of getting those transcripts and moving the courses forward, transfers, saving money, and then reaching the goals quicker. I mean, this is a great example of the work that's done in higher education by the Texas Coordinating Board and the staff. So, Commissioner Martinez, Ms. Mayor, thank you, and I know there's a lot of people that do a lot of hard work. And as you mentioned, those meetings, those faculty members, 8 to 10 hour meetings. It's not just a review this booklet and let's just make this quick decision. This is important work that's really for the future of higher education and the institutions and moving the ball forward. So thank you all. Everyone knows I love football. This is like the offensive line, that doesn't get all the glory, but, you have to have that line to be able to move the ball forward, and this is a crucial part. Thank you all.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I want to say I deeply support or deeply appreciate the support of the board, and so the new governance structure to facilitate development of these frameworks. The chain is caught on that already, and you can see how we're rapidly developing new pathways. So just to be clear, these transfer pathways are essentially associate's degrees for transfer, full associate's degrees for transfer, where students can be assured that 60 hours would transfer from the community college to a university. And so we're able to work in close partnership with the colleges and the universities to hammer out which courses should be part of that framework. When Elizabeth referenced the directed electives, the receiving institutions also have the ability to specify if there are a couple of courses that are really important that students need to take for a given university's program, they have the ability to specify those within the framework. So there's room to innovate the curriculum while providing that predictability for students. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in partnership with the board and the institutions over this last year, and deeply appreciative of Deputy Commissioner Martinez and Assistant Commissioner Elizabeth Mayer for their work to help get us where we are today. Now, but to your second point, Mr. Chairman, one of the important things that we're going to have to work on over these next few months is going to be making this less behind the scenes. So we will be working on a branding initiative. We have to figure out what we're going to call these degrees so that it's easier for students to understand, easier for parents to understand, the institutions to communicate. Here's what these completing these pathways gets you in that guarantee for transfer. So we will be coming back to the board and working on an engagement strategy to make sure that parents and counselors and post-secondary advisors and students themselves understand that this opportunity is out there. So hopefully we'll be a little less behind the scenes in the next few months.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do we pick which pathways to develop first? And the reason why I ask is pretty much every discussion we have here in our board meeting, we're always talking about nursing and nursing programs.
Yes, so we provide the Texas Transfer Advisory Committee with data on different kinds, how many students are transferring into the universities and what those majors are, how many are the types of majors that transfer students are completing in, and then we're also going over we have 16 existing fields of study, so they take a look at that too. So they're really trying to look at the data, what we have, and figure out, frankly, what is going to be most impactful for the most number of students.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for our panel? Not. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Martinez. Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Okay, we are ready to move on next to agenda item 8D, which is consideration and possible action to delegate to the Commissioner authority to approve the award for all funds allocated under SB 8, 87th Texas Legislature, third call session. Mr. Ken Martin, welcome. Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer will present this item and be available to answer questions. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, members. This particular item relates to Senate Bill 8, funding from the federal government, which was approved back in 2001, related to the American Rescue Plan Act, or I'll call it ARPA. And several $1 billion was appropriated from the federal standpoint to Texas, and the Texas legislature in the 87th legislature session and the third called special session had approved Senate Bill 8, which basically allocates the money received from the federal government, so these are federal funds, to many, many different entities out there, and one of them, of the recipients, will be the coordinating board. It's approximately $474 million in total, spread across 5 sections, which is 5 separate initiatives listed in your blue page. The key here, Mr. Gahn had asked a question yesterday, and some of the discussion was, is this for to help expedite? And in this particular case, the answer is yes, because these funds are appropriated, so they expire at the, it's November 7th, 2023. So we have approximately a year and a half to be able to expend these funds, get them out to various different entities, and then have them do what they're intended to do with these funds. And so timing is critical to part of it, receiving the approval to be able to grant these funds out, and then allow the entities to be able to execute. So we are requesting your approval to delegate to the Commissioner authority to approve the particular sub-grants that will ensue from these funds.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Members, do we have any questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to delegate the Commissioner authority to approve the award of all funds allocated under SB 8?
I'll move.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Clemmer, a second by Ms. Schwartz. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, members, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Not. Motion passes. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 8E, which is consideration and possible action to approve a gear-funded interagency contract with the Texas State University System totaling no more than $3 million for improvements to the commercial driver's license programs and to increase enrollment in the programs. Matt Parsons, Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Innovation, will present this item and be available for questions. Mr. Parsons.
Chairman, Board, good morning again. We are seeking approval of a GEAR-funded interagency contract with the Texas State University System for improvement to commercial driver's license programs. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports a shortage of approximately 50,000 truck drivers nationwide, and that number is only expected to increase with the need to replace workers who transfer to different occupations or exit the labor force via retirement. The COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated this issue. The purpose of the Commercial Driver's License Training Grant Program is to provide grants to the Texas State University System to ensure training is developed to expand opportunities for CDL licensure. This project pulls the resources of the Lamar State colleges within the Texas State University system to positively affect the commercial driver training within its 5,000 square mile service area. Coordinating board staff seeks approval to use $3 million of GEAR funding for this purpose. The coordinating board seeks to be a strong supportive partner to help alleviate barriers that exist in training additional CDL holders to improve transportation and the supply chain shortages. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parson. Members, do you have any questions?
Hasn't there just been a change in the requirement for commercial driver's licenses? It makes it way more expensive to attain.
I am not advised. I can find out and circle back.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. I know it's a much needed program out in David's neck of the woods. They were trying to hire, I'm told they were trying to hire truck drivers, and they were giving them signing bonuses, and they immediately started at over $100,000 just to haul the water for the oil. So I know they were having a really, really hard time to get some. So we definitely need more help in getting more drivers.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve a GEAR-funded interagency contract with the Texas State University system totaling no more than $3 million for improvement to commercial driver's license programs and to increase enrollment in the programs?
So move.
A motion by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wong. Any discussion? Members, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Parson. Agenda item 8F is consideration and possible action to approve entering into a GEAR-funded service contract totaling $2.5 million with Rice University to support the implementation of the Open Education Resources Nursing Essentials Project. Dr. Michelle Singh, Assistant Commissioner, for Digital Learning, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Dr. Singh.
Good morning, Chairman Farias, Vice Chair Williams, and board members. I'm Michelle Singh, the Assistant Commissioner for Digital Learning. The American Association of Colleges of Nursing, AACN, recently led the restructuring and redesign of domains, competencies, and subcompetencies for various levels of nursing practice. Completion of this work was announced in April 2021. Planning for implementation of the new AACN Essentials curriculum has been underway since fall. This new competency-based curriculum will impact the way nursing courses are taught in Texas and across the nation. However, a new curriculum structure requires the development of new instructional materials. We are currently engaged in the discovery phase of the Open Educational Resources Nursing Essentials Project, what we are referring to as the ONE, with OpenStax at Rice University. This discovery is to determine the feasibility of creating open educational resources to support instructional material adaptation and development to meet the new Essentials guidelines. Development of OER mapped to the AACN Essentials curriculum would decrease costs for students in a high-need field and allow instructors access to adaptable materials designed to directly address emerging methods of instruction and evaluation. We are seeking approval to enter into a GEAR-funded service contract totaling $2.5 million with Rice University to continue to support the design framework of the ONE project. The recommendation from the staff is for approval, and I am available for questions.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions or comments?
If I could just add a couple of points for context.
Of course.
So Rice University has a unique infrastructure and is recognized as a global leader in open educational resources. So we're talking about resources that are available for free to students and to institutions that can also be adapted for different contexts. So faculty can modify content, can add additional content. But the project, in this case, isn't just a project with the coordinating board and Rice University. There's also a consortium of nursing education programs from across the state that would participate in it. So the idea is the Texas institutions come together to develop a new nursing education curriculum that's aligned with the new standards that can be implemented and adapted across the state and across the nation.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that background.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, we're doing this with Rice because of their OpenStack program. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's correct. So they have that unique technology infrastructure and expertise there, but also then in partnership with all the nursing schools.
Comments, questions?
Question. The panel we just heard before, this one with Ray Martinez, the transfer initiative, are they off?
So that's absolutely where we want to go. So the idea is there's now these new accreditation standards for nursing programs. So all of the nursing programs are going to have to review and update their curriculum anyway. And so there's a great opportunity to say, well, let's jump into this with the institutions. So now we'll have modern competency-based education that represents the state-of-the-art in digital learning, and at the same time, think about how that could be delivered in different contexts. So you've got a seamless transfer across your community colleges and into your universities. So all the timing for this works out really well.
Any other comments or questions on this topic? If not, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve entering into the GEAR-funded service contract totaling $2.5 million with Rice University to support the implementation of the Open Education Resources Nursing Essentials Project?
Move favor.
A motion by Mr. Wilson, a second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Singh. Move on next to agenda item 9, which are the matters relating to the Committee on Innovation, Data, and Educational Analytics, chaired by Javed Anwar.
I would request a 5-minute break.
Well, that would be Mr. Anwar's call.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
Take a break.
Okay, he approves the break. We will take a 5-minute break.
Take a 10-minute break instead of 5.
Okay, we will reconvene in about 5 minutes or so. Thank y'all.
Hey, oh, he told me so. Oh, this is the other one that I didn't talk to. Okay, so we've got 3 then lined up. Will you be up at 3? Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. But he's going to do that separate from the insurance bid, right? Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That sounds good. I'm on a board call with the Texas board. Which one? The one in the front or the back? Well, the walkway and patio. Yeah. Okay. Did you get anything back on the appraisal from Joe or Michael? For Marlboro, you were going to send him an email. Yeah. But did you send that? Okay. Why don't you call the one? Did you find the ones that she sent us? And did you try to call any of them? Okay. Well, it's 4:53, so I'm just telling you. Okay, I'm on the board call. I gotta go. And you send me this guy's.
Okay. Matters relating to the Committee on Innovation, Data, and Education Analytics, chaired by Mr. Javed Anwar. Javed?
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for joining us for matters relating to the Committee on Innovation, Data, and Education Analytics. Agenda item 9B through 9D were approved on the consent calendar. Agenda item 9E is consideration and possible action to approve amending the staff augmentation and technology service contract pursuant to the Government Code Chapter 2155 with Damon Consulting, Inc. from June 30th, 2022 to September 30th, 2022 for, number one, contracts working directly on the Data Modernization Initiative project and backfill for the Data Modernization Staff Augmentation project. This item was presented at the IDA meeting yesterday with Ms. Lori I. Members, is there any questions? If not, I need a motion and second, please.
So moved. I'll second.
Thank you. Who's second? Oh, you did. Okay, thank you. Anybody, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody against? No, the motion passes. Agenda item 9F was approved on the consent calendar. This concludes the portion of the meeting. I love it.
Thank you, Javed. Very efficient.
Unlike yesterday, it went on forever.
Well, as everybody knows, the committee works and go on for hours, and then when we present it to the board, all the, kind of the major points have been covered, obviously. Okay, so the next agenda item is lunch.
Good lunch.
Unless we want to move on and do lunch later, we have that option. I see everyone shaking
I like
their
that
head.
idea. Let's move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Agenda item 11 then is matters relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success, chaired by Vice Chair Donna Williams.
All right, thank you. Good morning. During the Committee Academic and Workforce Success meeting yesterday, the committee approved the following items: the minutes from the January 26th meeting, a report on school closures and/or teach-outs, a report to the legislature regarding Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, Subchapters 52, or Subchapters E2 and E3, a report on fiscal year 2022 annual review of low-producing programs, the appointment of student representatives to the Learning Technology and Texas Transfer Advisory Committees, a request to amend a current contract with the College Board for delivery on pre-assessment activity supporting the Texas Success Initiative, a request to extend the current contract with the University of Texas at Austin for maintenance of the Apply Texas system, the appointment of members to the Advisory Council on Post-Secondary Education for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, a request to approve the issuance of a request for offer for the Apply Texas system, program request for the University of Texas at El Paso for a Doctor of Occupational Therapy, the University of Texas at Tyler for a master's degree in cybersecurity and data analytics, Stephen F. Austin State University for a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering and Mechanical Engineering, and the University of North Texas for a Doctor of Business in Business Administration, and the Texas Tech University for a Doctor of Philosophy in One Health Sciences. Amendments to the Board Rules 6.107, 6.110, 6.122, 6.125, 6.137, and 6.140, and a repeal of Board Rules 6.175 through 6.184. Agenda item 11B was approved on consent. Agenda item 11C is consideration and adoption and possible action to adopt the report to the legislature regarding Texas Education Code 51 subchapters E2 and E3. Dr. Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available for questions and answers.
Good morning. My name is Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Education. This agenda item provides the required annual report to the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the standing legislative committees with primary jurisdiction over legislation concerning sexual assault at post-secondary educational institutions. The report includes information regarding institutions' compliance with Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, Subchapter E2 and E3. State law requires an employee of a post-secondary institution to report incidents involving sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, or stalking alleged to have been committed by or against persons who were students enrolled or an employee of an institution at the time of the incident. Reports are made to the institution by the Title IX coordinator. State law further requires the chief executive officer of the institution to annually certify to the coordinating board that the institution is in substantial compliance with these reporting requirements. Subchapter E3 requires institutions to develop policies and procedures regarding sexual misconduct, reporting requirement of resources, and handling of investigations. The report on compliance includes the summary results of compliance monitoring for academic year 2020 through 2021, presented by Mark Pale, Assistant Commissioner of Internal Audit and Compliance. 217 post-secondary institutions were identified and required to provide CEO certifications. 10 institutions did not file timely certifications but have since complied. 5 institutions were selected for detailed review and assessment of policies and procedures under the state law. Each of these 5 institutions demonstrated compliance with 18 compliance requirements developed by the compliance monitoring staff. The report also provides information on institutions for which compliance monitoring was done to ensure the institutions corrected compliance issues for the academic year of 2019 through 2020. Based on 2 years of compliance monitoring by the coordinating board staff intends to convene a negotiating rulemaking committee to develop an administrative penalty matrix as part of the administrative rules Coordinating Rule 319. This negotiating rulemaking is anticipated to take place in January of 2023, and that concludes my report.
Members, any questions for Dr. Jackson? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Agenda item 11D is consideration and possible action to adopt the report on fiscal year 2022 annual review of low-producing programs. Elizabeth Mayer, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Good morning. Beginning in 2013, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board began issuing recommendations for closure and consolidation to institution governing boards for degree programs that have consistently produced low number of graduates. Recommendations to close or consolidate are made for non-exempt degree programs that have been on the annual list of low-producing degree programs for 3 or more consecutive years. In order for a degree program to be identified as low-producing, the number of its graduates is over a cumulative 5-year period. So they would have fewer than 25 graduates for undergraduate degree programs, fewer than 15 graduates for master's degree programs, or fewer than 10 graduates for doctoral degree programs. The recommendations are made to the Governing Board of a public system of higher education or to the Governing Board of a public institution of higher education where a system does not exist. If the Governing Board of the system or institution does not accept the Coordinating Board recommendation, then the system or the institution where a system does not exist must identify the programs recommended for consolidation or closure on its next legislative appropriations request, or LAR. Coordinating Board makes recommendations to systems and institutions governing boards for closure or consolidation of low-producing degree programs in odd-numbered years. This allows systems and institutions time to decide on appropriate action and in the year prior to the submission of their LAR, which is done in even-numbered years. The Board approved a list of programs recommended for closure based upon the fiscal year 2021 low-producing program review at the April 2021 board meeting. This list of this year's review, fiscal year 2022, is an updated list to reflect actions on programs and to include new programs that are low-producing for 3 consecutive years. Of the 195 programs identified as low-producing, 126 programs have been low-producing for 3 or more consecutive reviews. The 2021 report identified about the same number of programs, 121 programs, as low-producing for 3 or more consecutive reviews. Of the degree programs, 8 were closed or consolidated at the request of their institution during the following year, and 16 increased the number of graduates and were no longer low-producing. For the programs that are not closed or consolidated, institutions would list their identified programs with the LAR for the 24-25 biennium. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. And yesterday in committee meeting, we talked a little bit about new programs that they have 5 years before they start getting in the review cycle. All right, members, are there any questions for Ms. Mayer? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the report on the fiscal year 2022 annual review of low-producing programs? May I have a motion?
Aye.
I have a motion by Director Anwar and a second by Sam Torn. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 11E1 and 11E2 were approved on consent agenda. Agenda item 11F is consideration and possible action to approve the request pursuant to Government Code 2155 to amend the current contract with the College Board for delivery of a pre-assessment activity supporting the Texas Success Initiative. Jarrell Booker, Assistant Commissioner for College Readiness and Success, will present this item and be available to answer questions. And I wrote down your new title, but I forgot, Mary reminded me it's not effective until May 1, but that's your new title. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, thank you. I'm still the Assistant Commissioner for College Readiness and Success. This is actually consent worthy. You all approved this in the Calls Committee on Consent, but we did think it was important to just highlight it to the board. Many of you may know we use TSI, the Texas Success Initiative, to determine college readiness as an option to determine college readiness. We have an exam that we call TSI-A, TSI Assessment 2.0, that helps determine that. That exam is critically important for students to show college readiness, so we've required institutions to provide a pre-assessment activity to tell you how important it is, to tell you their resources to study, talk to you about what would happen afterwards, how you pass or don't pass or what may have you. We have always, I think since 2015, we've used the same vendor to provide that pre-assessment activity. That vendor contract ended last month. In order for us to continue to have good continuity, we are asking to amend our current College Board contract. Those are the people who actually created the assessment for us to actually design that pre-assessment tool and to offer that pre-assessment tool. So it's a no-cost contract by design, and the amendment is also a no-cost contract for us, but it does allow us to have continuity and still offer that pre-assessment. So we're asking for approval to amend that current contract.
Members, are there any questions for Mr. Booker? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request pursuant to Government Code 2155 to amend the current contract with the College Board for delivery of a pre-assessment activity supporting the Texas Success Initiative?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 11G was approved on consent. Agenda item 11H was approved on consent. And agenda item 11I is consideration and possible action to approve the solicitation of a contract for the Applied Texas System. Jarrell Booker will present this item and be available for questions as well.
Madam Chair and members, there was a previous item that was approved on consent this time around that deals with the Applied Texas application. That is our common application that students are able to complete and apply for all public institutions and two-year colleges as well as a number of private colleges here in the state. That online application portal has always been, it was developed and maintained by the University of Texas at Austin. We're at a point where that contract will end now next year, next August, and this is a request to have a request for offers so we can find a new vendor to actually enhance and modernize that application and to do all the things that we think are necessary to move this application into the future, and this is our official request to ask us to put out that request for offer.
Members, are there any questions for Mr. Booker? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the solicitation of a contract for Applied Texas System?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 11J is an update on program approval rule revisions. Ray Martinez, Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education, and Elizabeth Mayer, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available for questions.
Madam Chair, good morning again. Ray Martinez, Deputy Commissioner for Academic Affairs and Workforce Education. One of the more significant obligations or responsibilities of this agency that has been delegated by the legislature and is codified in the Education Code is for this agency to approve any new degree programs or certificate programs that are developed by our public institutions of higher education across the state. This authority has been given to this agency for many years, and over the course of implementing this authority, various changes have been made to how this agency exercises this authority to approve new degree and certificate programs. So, for example, right now, what we have are rules in place in the administrative code that say that any new doctoral degree program will come before the board, any new engineering degree program will come before the board, and any degree program, whether bachelor's or above, that is at least $2 million in cost over a maybe 3 to 5 year period also comes before the board. And so what we're doing is to take a look at how this authority is being utilized and what policies and procedures we have in place with regard to this authority, so that we can try to streamline our new degree and certificate approval process, and to align it, for example, with building a Talent Strong Texas, our refreshed strategic plan, and also to make things more institution friendly. Because while we have our requirements, there's also requirements, for example, for the regional accreditor, SAC-COC. So can we look at our process and align things so that we can make this easier for institutions to follow, and figure out how we want to articulate this policy as we move forward. So this item is information only, Madam Chair, as you explained, and what we're doing today, and then we'll do it again in July, is to give you an update as to what we're doing to move this initiative forward, who we're engaging with, and to kind of give you a ramp up to what we expect would be maybe the October board meeting, that we'd actually bring a rules packet before you to make some final decisions. Of course, all of this will be done in close consultation with Commissioner Keller and with his guidance, and for him to articulate how, as we get input, how we should develop this proposed policy to bring to you all. So that's what we're putting forward today. It's just the first sort of explanation as to what this process looks like. And again, with a strong team of colleagues here at the agency, we've already started this process. It's been in place and going for many months now, but we've gotten to the point where Commissioner Keller felt it was important for us to begin to talk to you all about this. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Elizabeth Mayer, our Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, who will explain in a little bit more detail what we're doing exactly to engage the field. Elizabeth.
So enacting new rules will actually necessitate aligning external and internal policies, processes, forms, guidance, and our website. The purpose of this revision, just to dig into a little bit more of what Ray covered, is to better align degree and certificates approval processes to the agency's refreshed strategic plan, which you all adopted in January, and also to minimize institutions' regulatory burden and supporting institutional innovation by improving the navigability and readability of our processes, revising the timelines to allow institutions to respond to workforce demand quickly, and aligning policies with external regulations such as SAC-COC where feasible. Focus the board's time and attention on the most meaningful program approval questions, bring agency rules and procedures in line with statute, achieve the policy objective of having a comprehensive catalog of all higher education credentials offered in the state, which is an indicator in the refreshed strategic plan, and improve the administratability of program approval with policies, processes that are feasible, efficient, flexible, while also ensuring quality. To facilitate in this process, similar to how we did with the transfer work group, we've pulled together a group of stakeholders from community colleges, universities, and the HRIs. And the work group members have been meeting since March to discuss the existing opportunities and challenges that currently exist in the program review and approval processes. We look forward to continuing to update you on this process and are excited about the work ahead that will provide more clarity for the institutions as well in moving forward, while also giving them the opportunity to innovate.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one thing that I did want to also explain, and that is that there's criteria in the Education Code that the legislature has said to this agency, here's what we want you to utilize as you review any new degree or certificate program. So it could be what resources are available to ensure student success, are qualified faculty available to be able to teach in the particular subject that the new program that is proposed in, various academic quality issues, the need for a local or statewide need for that particular degree program. That's not the exhaustive list, but those are examples of some of the things that we have to filter our decision-making as we make a recommendation to the Commissioner and to this Board when any new degree or certificate program comes before our agency. All of that is handled by the Division of Academic and Health Affairs and our Assistant Commissioner Elizabeth Mayer. But so those are some of the conditions, and so all of this is what we're looking at. It's an important initiative and something that I think we'll have some recommendations for you as we move forward.
Yeah, Ms. Williams, can I say a word? So first of all, Commissioner, thank you, and Ray and Elizabeth, thank you for bringing this as we move forward for the July meeting, the October meeting, putting this on the radar screen and giving us an update, because this is a very important policy initiative that the board and the agency are doing. So we do appreciate you letting us know what's happening now and where we're going with this in the future. So as a board, I know members, we really do appreciate, Commissioner, and working with the staff, letting us know the key initiatives and policies as we move forward. So thank you for that, for putting it on this agenda.
I have a question. Will this include kind of clarification of, and maybe it's just an area that I get confused on, and what the difference is between new schools opening up around the state versus campuses of existing schools or extensions of the schools, and what the differences are and approval processes?
So I think that is definitely a goal. I think part of the reason that we have some confusion now is institutions sometimes don't have clarity about our processes. And so we're hoping that with these revision of the rules that it will be much more transparent about what processes they need to follow. And because we are looking at, right now we're focused on just face-to-face. We're going to, I think, in the future handle distance, because that is a whole other set of things that I think we need to look at in more detail. And we'll be collaborating with the Assistant Commissioner, Michelle Singh, on digital learning. But for now, we're really focused on getting a grounding of those face-to-face.
That's a really good point, Ms. Schwartz, because we do get that question quite a bit. And for the newer board members, you've got campuses that are opening up, branch campuses, so sometimes we get questions about, and then higher ed centers that systems have. So it's pretty complex. And I think it's important for the board members and really the general public, the state, to know how the processes are and what constitutes of doing a higher ed center or a system, doing a branch, or a new university system, or opening up a new college. So this is a very important and timely topic.
Is it the same, I'm sorry, just a question. Is it the same process right now for a new program and a new campus, right? Same process right now, currently?
I believe it is a similar process.
Same process?
Yeah.
Even though it's a big campus or just a program addition? Okay. And another question, just out of curiosity, are we getting more and more program requests, new program requests throughout the years? Do you feel like the workload is kind of like that way going on?
Yes. And we are getting more program requests. I mean, that's, I'd have to go back and we have data on that, and I'd have to go back and look. But it is increasing. I mean, my team, I think, did over 100 bachelor's programs last year alone, 60, 30-ish master's programs, and several doctoral programs. So, yes.
Are you looking toward kind of like look at in the future that maybe there will be different kind of process for a big campus, new campus versus a undergraduate program, for example, request? So you're looking to kind of that kind of outcome, you said?
So are you talking about if it's offered at like a primary campus and then they have a distance location? Yeah. I think that is part of what we're looking at as well.
All right.
I'll tell the board that weekly I'm on your email.
Yes.
And so I appreciate that. Weekly I get an email, and to answer your question, Mr. Wong, yes, the institutions, we have a long list of programs that they assign to our staff, and we've hats off again to the staff and the hard work that the institutions propose programs. And I get a list every week. I'm on their list, and I look at all the institutions and all the programs and who they assign. It's extensive work. So these programs, like we'll be hearing in a few minutes, take years, some of them, right? And to get them together, and a lot of organization, there's a lot of prep work and a lot of due diligence that goes into them. And I look at the programs, and it's a very impressive, detailed work. And there's quite a few programs.
I really appreciate the work. I mean, it's one of the most important functions of our board, and I appreciate the staff doing all this. It's a great work.
We all know realigning is no small feat. So my hope with that is also we'll come up with consistent language, consistency across the board. So if we're talking apples, we're all talking apples. Okay. Any additional questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item. Thank you both. Agenda item 11K is consideration and possible action of adopting the following requests for new degree programs. It's very timely. Agenda item 11K1 is consideration and possible action of approving the request from the University of Texas at El Paso for a Doctor of Occupational Therapy, an ODT degree with a major in occupational therapy. Dr. Delia Castillo, Program Director, and Dr. Stephen Kreitz, Dean Graduate School, are available for questions and comments. Elizabeth Mayer is going to present this item and be available to answer questions.
So a point of information before we begin, the guys from Stephen F. Austin brought donuts and sausages this morning. So I just want to say that I think it's important that the rest of you guys take note.
I know.
And you probably need to start thinking about upping your game.
I know. Thank you, Mr. Torn. Yeah. We're getting a new mic.
Okay. The University of Texas at El Paso is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Occupational Therapy degree in occupational therapy. UT El Paso currently offers a master's degree program in occupational therapy that would be phased out as the proposed doctoral degree is initiated. The proposed face-to-face program would require 105 semester credit hours beyond a bachelor's degree program beginning in fall of 2022. The doctoral program would prepare students to sit for licensure as occupational therapists. Workforce data indicates that there is a growing need for occupational therapists. The Texas Workforce Commission expects the state employment rate for occupational therapists to grow at a faster rate than the average for all occupations. While workforce projections consider a master's degree to be sufficient for occupational therapists, the Accreditation Council of Occupational Therapy Education recommended changing the entry-level requirement for occupational therapists to a doctoral degree. The recommendation, however, was not passed at the accreditor meeting. Although the transition to the OTD as the entry-level degree for occupational therapist certification did not occur, the number of OTD programs nationwide continues to increase as more institutions move toward offering the OTD. There are currently 6 institutions in Texas offering doctoral programs in occupational therapy. In accordance with the institution's proposed hiring schedule, UT El Paso will hire 1 core faculty member to start in the fall of 2022. The institution will seek accreditation for its OTD degree program. That concludes my remarks.
Dr. Castillo, would you like to make comments?
I don't have any comments at this time. Thank you for the consideration.
All right. We had some good, healthy discussions around this initiative yesterday. So, members, do you all have any comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of Texas at El Paso for a Doctor of Occupational Therapy, an ODT degree with a major in occupational therapy? I'll move. May I have a second?
Yes, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, the motion passes. Agenda item 11.2 is...
Excuse me. Could we possibly take a few-minute break while the technicians see if they can make the microphones work, please?
Sure.
Tony, you can take the 5 minutes.
time they reply. Two. I'm gonna walk. Yeah, two surgeons. One was fast job, totally I couldn't.
I'm gonna start to take it personal, Mary. Oh, that's okay. All right, technical difficulties are done. We are ready to move on. Agenda item 11K2 is the consideration and possible action of approving the request from the University of Texas at Tyler for a Master's of Science, an MS in Cybersecurity and Data Analytics. Dr. Tom Roberts, Professor of Computer Science, and Dr. Robert Shoemaker, Professor of Computer Science, Founder and Director of the Data Analytic Lab, are available for questions and comments. Elizabeth Mayer will present this item and also be available for questions. Elizabeth?
University of Texas at Tyler is seeking approval to offer a Master of Science degree program in Cybersecurity and Data Analytics beginning fall 2022. The proposed program would require completion of 36 semester credit hours and would be offered fully online. Students would graduate with a course mix that can lead to career advancement or future jobs in either cybersecurity, data analytics, or both. Students could complete up to 4 graduate certificates within the proposed program. The proposed online program would be designed to prepare students with knowledge and skills for strengthening cybersecurity protocols and developing cybersecure control systems. The proposed program would combine cybersecurity and data analytics into a single master's degree program that would require students to complete foundation baseline courses that are necessary for both areas. Data nationally and statewide indicate workforce need for cybersecurity managers and data analysts is currently not being met. There are 10 public institutions and 3 private institutions that offer a master's level degree in cybersecurity data analytics in Texas. That concludes my remarks.
Dr. Roberts or Dr. Shoemaker, either one. Members, any questions? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of Texas at Tyler for a Master's of Science in Cybersecurity and Data Analytics? May I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 11K3 is consideration and possible action of approving the request from Stephen F. Austin State University for a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering. Mark Guidry, Associate Provost, Dr. Matthew Beauregard, Chair, Department of Physics, and Dr. Lorenzo Smith, Provost, Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs, will be available for questions and comments. Good to see you guys in person, and thanks for the kolaches, okay? Elizabeth will present this item and be available for questions and answers.
Stephen F. Austin State University is seeking approval to offer a Bachelor of Science degree program in electrical engineering. The proposed program would require 126 semester credit hours and would begin in fall 2022. The proposed program would be offered face-to-face to students in Nacogdoches. In addition to conventional courses in electrical engineering, the institution is proposing a curriculum with 2 capstone courses for prototype construction and testing in the 4th year that would promote collaboration across engineering disciplines. The program would build upon the electrical engineering concentration currently offered as part of the institution's BS program in engineering physics, which is accredited by the Accreditation Board of Engineering and Technology, or ABET. The institution has sufficient faculty and support staff in place to begin the proposed program. And I believe we talked a little bit about, y'all's faculty yesterday. And the institution will seek accreditation for its electrical engineering degree program from ABET upon graduation of its first cohort.
Thank you. Dr. Guidry, would you like to make comments?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for this opportunity. I do want to say we heard the words Texas First today, which are important words. Over half of our students self-identify as first generation on the Common Application, and we have many first-generation students in our engineering physics program, and we think that these 2 Bachelors of Science in Engineering and Electrical and Mechanical will also have many first-generation students, and that these programs will be transformative for them and for their families.
Yeah, again, I appreciate the time to be here in flesh and be with you all. I welcome any questions that you may have that weren't already addressed yesterday, or follow-up questions that you may have for me.
Are there employers in the area that have expressed a need for this discipline? Is there a job at the end of the tunnel?
Absolutely. Aacn Industries and Lockheed Martin and Twin Disc are 3 industrial partners that are within, either in Nacogdoches or Lufkin, which is about 30 minutes south, that have explicit interests of either having embedded internship programs here at SFA or having embedded internships at their local industries. And so a lot of our alumni from our engineering physics program are already employed there. And so there's a direct connection with SFA. So they're pretty excited about that opportunity. Even yesterday, during our time together, I had an email from one of our students, Hustley, who just got hired by Lockheed Martin and was looking for new other, close to graduating students to work in the summer, with hopefully that they'll be matriculating into a long-term position there at Lockheed and coming. The start date would be January 1 for full-time employment. So, yes.
I agree with Dr. Guidry saying this is going to be transformative for your area. I have a minor in physics and geometrical optics.
Oh, excellent.
You're head of the physics department, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very transformative, and I think it's going to give not only current but future SFA lumberjacks definitely great opportunities, especially in that region of the state that want to stay around East Texas.
Okay. Dr. Smith, did you want to make comments?
Other than just affirming strong institutional support for the programs, we're very enthusiastic about these 2 new programs, and we look forward to the success of them.
Awesome. Members, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the Stephen F. Austin State University for a Bachelor's of Science, a BS in Electrical Engineering?
So moved.
May I have a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Did you all get who made the second? Who made the? Dr. Farias made the second. You're welcome. I saw some puzzled looks over there. Okay. Okay, next agenda item 11, K4, is also consideration and action for approving the request from Stephen F. Austin.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, you have 2. You got 2. Yeah. We could have combined them, but no, that would have been way too easy. But Anyway, agenda item 11K is consideration and a possible action of approving the request from Stephen F. Austin State University for a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. The same crew will present and be available for questions. Elizabeth will present the item.
Donuts only get you 1 degree.
But that's where we had kolaches. It's donuts and kolaches.
There you go.
Stephen F. Austin State University is seeking approval to offer a Bachelor of Science degree program in mechanical engineering. The proposed program would require 122 semester credit hours and would begin in the fall of 2022. The proposed program would be offered face-to-face to students in Nacogdoches. In addition to conventional courses in mechanical engineering, the institution is proposing curriculum with 2 capstone courses for applying engineering standards and principles and design project. The program would build upon the mechanical engineering concentration currently offered as part of Stephen F. Austin State University's BS program in engineering physics, which, as I mentioned from the previous proposal, is accredited by ABET. The institution has sufficient faculty and support staff in place to begin the proposed program. 2 additional core faculty members will be hired in the 2nd and 4th years. The institution will seek accreditation for its mechanical engineering degree program from ABET upon graduation of its first cohort.
Right, members, would you, good? Members, do you guys have additional questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the Stephen F. Austin State University for a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering?
Move.
May I have a second? Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, the motion passes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Safe travels back. All right, next is agenda item 11K5, is consideration and possible action of approving the request from the University of North Texas for a Doctor of Business, a DBA, in Business Administration. Dr. Marilyn Whaley, Dean of G. Brent Ryan College of Business, and Dr. Adash Paswan, Assistant Dean of the G. Brent Ryan College for Business, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Michael McPherson, Interim Provost, is also available for comments, and he's joining us by Zoom. Elizabeth will present this item and be available for questions.
The University of North Texas is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Business Administration degree program in Business Administration. The proposed program would require 48 semester credit hours and would begin in fall of 2022. The proposed program would be offered face-to-face to students in Denton, with plans to relocate to a new branch campus to be built in Frisco. The curriculum plan estimates that students would complete the degree in 3 years. Students are expected to keep their existing jobs while participating in courses on weekends. UNT is proposing a curriculum model that allows for concentrations such as accounting and business computer information systems to be added according to student demand. This would allow the proposed program to establish a distinctive identity among the programs in the Metroplex. The institution has sufficient faculty and support staff in place to begin the proposed program. UNT would hire one new full-time staff member, one-time master's degree student assistant, and 1 new core faculty member in year 2, and a 2nd new core faculty member in year 3. The Association to Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business, AACSB, accredits schools or colleges of business rather than individual programs. Because UNT's G. Brent Ryan College of Business is already accredited by AACSB, the proposed program would be considered accredited until the next review cycle. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you.
Does not seem to want to
participate today.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. We sincerely appreciate your consideration on behalf of UNT and the G. Brent Ryan College of Business. And to be respectful of your time, I'll just say that we had extensive remarks yesterday, and we would be happy to take any questions.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of Texas for a doctorate of business in business administration?
No motion.
I'll second.
What did I say? North Texas. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to read the motion again just so we can get it right in the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of North Texas for a Doctor of Business, a DBA, in Business Administration?
I motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, the motion passes. Agenda item 11KG is consideration and possible action of approving the request from Texas Tech University for a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD in One Health Sciences. Dr. Gary Lungren, Dean of School of Veterinary Medicine, and Dr. Darrell James, Provost, Vice Provost for Institutional Effectiveness are available for questions and comments, and Elizabeth Mayer will present this item and be available for questions and answers as well.
Texas Tech University is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Philosophy degree program in One Health Sciences. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention describes One Health as a collaborative, multi-sectoral, and transdisciplinary approach working at the local, regional, national, and global levels, with the goal of achieving optimal health outcomes, recognizing the interconnection between people, animals, plants, and their shared environment. This would be the first PhD program in One Health Sciences in the United States. The proposed program would require 72 semester credit hours and would begin in fall 2022. The proposed program would be offered face-to-face to students at the Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine in Amarillo. The curriculum plan estimates that students would complete the degree in 5 years. It is difficult to estimate job demand for the first program in the U.S. in an emerging new discipline, but job prospects for graduates appear strong. The external reviewers for this program noted that graduates would be distinctively trained for potential employers such as academic institutions, biomedical industries, government agencies, and global nonprofit agencies. Although graduates may need to explain their competencies to some employers or rely on their focused traditional area of PhD study. Texas Tech University is proposing a curriculum with 18 semester credit hours of core One Health concepts and research methods courses. The 33 semester credit hours of electives fall into 5 general categories: molecular mechanisms of disease, disease prevention, adult education pedagogy, ecology and management, and sustainability of animal agriculture. After 3 semester credit hours of journal club and 6 semester credit hours of research seminar, there would be a minimum of 12 semester credit hours of required dissertation research hours. In addition, Texas Tech is also going to be incorporating a year of laboratory rotations, including collaborations with the Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much. We're very excited about this program and would be happy to try and answer any additional questions or provide more information on yesterday's discussion. Thank you.
Did I hear correctly, this is the first of this program in the United States?
That is correct, sir, yes.
So how'd you come up with the idea or the...
There are a lot of programs that focus on One Health around the U.S. and the world. They're not codified into academic programs yet. There are a couple of earned master's degrees, and there have recently been international PhD programs centered around One Health. And given the pandemic over the last couple of years, it certainly heightened the awareness and the importance of this topic, and this drove us to really view this as an opportunity, and as we researched it, we saw this as a real opportunity we wanted to pursue.
Great. Well, congratulations on out of the box.
Thank you, sir.
I still hadn't figured out what it is. So I listened to the definition, and that sounds great. Just give me a practical example of what somebody's gonna do with this degree. What are they gonna do?
So, the list of areas of research, so molecular mechanisms of disease. So the purpose is to provide a common foundational knowledge to all of our students, regardless of their field of study that they're working on, so that then they can approach problems with a broader worldview. So if they're doing comparative cancer research, of exploring the similarities and differences of various cancer types between animals and humans, then now this allows them to explore it from a One Health perspective and think about, well, does ecosystem play a role? Does human health, and how does animal health and human health interact together?
Okay.
So the graduate of this program can teach, so the program of this graduate can teach in biomedical science and other medical fields, is it correct?
That is correct, sir.
So
yes.
but basically, he or she will be teaching and research in this area.
That is correct,
That's
sir.
correct. Yeah, appreciate it.
Any additional questions? Do I have a motion to approve the request from the Texas Tech University for a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD in One Health Sciences?
I'll move.
I have a motion and a second. Did you guys get that? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Agenda item 11L was approved on consent. Agenda item 11M1 through M4 were approved on consent. Agenda item 11.5M is consideration and possible action to adopt the proposed amendment rules 13.303 concerning total research expenditures. And Elizabeth will present this item and be available for questions as well.
The intent of the proposed amendment to Chapter 13, Subchapter M, Section 13.303 of Board Rules is to clarify that a research expenditure does not include funds a public institution passes through to another public academic or health-related institution. Specifically, this amendment makes only conforming changes to clarify the accounting standards and reporting requirements that the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board uses to collect total eligible research expenditures. The proposed amendment in Section 13.303C1 would clarify that the narrow definition of research expenditures used in the Coordinating Board's Research Expenditure Survey does not include pass-through funds that are passed from an institution to a subrecipient. It is another academic or health-related entity to avoid double counting of expenditures that are used for the calculation of state research fund distribution. The pass-through of funds from one institution of higher education to another is not itself an expenditure of funds. Comments were received from 4 institutions. I'm just going to review those comments. So the first comment was related to pass-through funds to other public institutions that would no longer be counted as total research expenditures. The Coordinating Board response to the comment is that the proposed rule change would allow reporting of expenditures of pass-through funds only at either the original or receiving institution if funds were passed between Texas public institutions. No longer could both institutions include the funding of research expenditures. While such occurrences are rare and amounts are typically small, the proposed amendment would further reduce the chance of double counting. The second comment was regarding the National Center for Education Statistics nationwide survey of research expenditures, which allows counting of pass-through funds. The Coordinating Board response to this comment is that the national and Texas surveys do not use a one-to-one equivalent methodology. The proposed rule change continued to allow counting of pass-through funds to entities other than Texas public institutions. The third comment received was related to the National Research University Fund, or NRUF. The comment indicated that a set of different criteria of the allocation of research funds and maintenance of national standards should be encouraged. The Coordinating Board staff response to this concern is that competitiveness for NRUF does not come into play as a result of the rule change. The standards and accounting methodology for restricted research expenditures already prohibit double counting of pass-through funds between institutions competing for the same state dollars. The last comment was the proposed amendment to the rule would discourage collaboration in interdisciplinary and collaborative research across Texas institutions. The coordinating board staff does not think a more accurate accounting of research expenditures would inhibit collaboration between institutions. Researchers who collaborate within and between institutions are concerned about the grant amounts awarded to each investigator and may not necessarily be concerned about the institutional research expenditures used for formula distribution of state appropriations. The coordinating board staff does not recommend any changes to the proposed rules based upon the comments that were submitted. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the proposed amendments to Board Rules 13303 concerning total research expenditures? May I have a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. This concludes the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success part of the agenda.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. Okay, so we will now go back to agenda item 10, which is lunch. We will now recess for lunch. We will reconvene at 12:45. It's right about noon, for 30 minutes, let's say. Is that okay? 30, 45
Chairman,
minutes?
we have only 2-3 items left. Why don't we finish it and move on?
We can do that if the board chooses to do that.
Because I can take an early Greyhound.
Okay. If we have a consensus on that, we can move on. Not a problem. Let us move on.
There's only 2-3 items, right?
Yes, we have one more committee report. You're right, and then we can move on. Agency Operations Committee would be next, then. That's fine. Matters relating to agenda item 12. Then we'll move on. No problem. Matters relating to the Agency of Operations Committee, chaired by Emma Schwartz. Ms. Schwartz.
All right. Good morning for 2 more minutes. During the Agency Operations Committee meeting yesterday, the committee approved the minutes from the January 26th Agency Operations Committee meeting, entering a contract up to $1 million for procurement of office furniture and chairs, the proposed repeal and replacement of Rule 1.16, and to issue a solicitation for a vendor to serve as a financial advisor for the agency's student loan program. The committee also received a report on grants and contracts, a review of the fiscal year 2022 financial report, a discussion of the State of Texas federal portion of the statewide single audit for the fiscal year ended August 31, 2021, report number 22-320, a discussion of statements on accounting standards number 114, the auditor's communication with those charged with governance, an update on internal audit reports and activities, and an update on the state and federal compliance monitoring reports and activities. Agenda item 12B was on consent. Agenda item 12C is consideration and possible action to approve entering a contract, one or more contracts for $1 million for of office furniture and chairs. Ms. Ken Martin, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Mr. Martin.
No pressure as I'm holding up lunch, I guess, right? Yesterday we discussed the transition of the agency to a new building in the Capitol complex that the Texas Facilities Commission is building. There's the Barbara Jordan building and the George H.W. Bush building, which we will be occupying the 12th and half of approximately the 11th floor. And so with that, during the last session, we requested additional funding to be able to procure new chairs, and our chairs, it looks like my dog ate the arm chairs off of it or something. So we are looking to procure new chairs and office furniture. Due to the size of the offices, it does change some of the dynamics of what we have in the building, and we request your approval for procuring up to $1 million for those particular items.
You all are very excited. Do we have a motion to approve entering one or more contract up to $1 million for procurement of office furniture and chairs? So moved.
Motion.
We have a motion. And a second by Mr. Clemmer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Madam Chair, we have members over here fighting over cookies.
We should have taken lunch.
That's right. That's right.
Are we good? Have we settled?
Good.
Okay. Well, there's some snacks over there too, remember? Okay, moving on to agenda item 12D1 is consideration and possible action to adopt proposed repeal and replacement of 1.16 concerning contracts, including grants for materials and or services. Members, you have supplemental materials in your packet for this item. It's printed on the goldenrod paper. Nicole Bunker Henderson, General Counsel, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Ms. Bunker Henderson.
Madam Chair, members, we went into this item yesterday in some detail, so I don't necessarily need to revisit all of that since I believe most of you all were there. But this item presents you with the opportunity to increase the delegation of authority for contracting to the Commissioner up to $5 million. The key features of these updates are that over $1 million, you would receive a notification to the chair, the vice chair, and to the chair of the committee to which the contract would normally have been assigned. It updates our reporting requirements and updates some of the other language in the rule to make sure that it's the most up to date and reflects current statutes. Amendments would allow the board and the agency staff to more swiftly execute contracts, make sure that we're getting all of these grants that are going out. You've heard about a lot of great grant programs today, a lot of procurements today. But this would be done efficiently and would allow us to exercise strong controls over both the procurement laws, the conflicts of interest laws, and make sure that we're aligning with the Open Meetings Act in executing all of those. So with that, we would ask you to approve the amendments to Rule 1.16.
So we wouldn't have had to approve the chairs right now.
You would not have had to approve the chairs. You could have, the Commissioner could have just approved the chairs. But I know you all like to hear about the state of the chairs of the agency. So.
Okay, do we have any questions? If not, members, do I have a motion to adopt the proposed repeal and replacement of Rule 1.16 concerning contracts, including grants for materials and or services?
So moved.
Moved, and Mr. Anwar, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. And this concludes the Agency Operations Committee agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz.
There you go.
The next item could be controversial, but we'll see. Agenda item 13, adjournment. Do I have a motion? This concludes our meeting. The time is now 12:03 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Yes. Second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, members, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Aye.
Thank you all very much for a great meeting. Have a good day. Thank you, Mr. Clemmer, for joining us.
Hey, thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.